Oh boy, big news, big drama. Oh boy. Ron DeSantis has dropped out of the presidential race and endorsed Donald Trump. The Florida governor, who once appeared to be Donald Trump's most daunting challenger, ran a costly, turbulent campaign that failed to catch on with Republican voters. And for me, I think the funniest reason why he lost the shot that he had was because he never had it. He never had it at all. He got carried in Florida, barely defeating a dude who was then later outed as a guy who was doing meth with a gay prostitute in Fontainebleau. And then he also went up against another guy who was like profoundly uncharismatic as well. And it turns out he absolutely got carried by Donald Trump. In the words of Donald Trump, he got carried by him. Donald Trump was right. And now he's gone. Why is he gone? Because he was so awful. Every moment that he seemingly appeared on camera was another disaster. Okay. He went after the king. Okay. He went after Mouse, and you can't do that. Mickey is got shooters. Mickey destroyed him. He was like stuck over correcting, trying to be like the nerdy Donald Trump, losing sight of something that I mentioned a million times over, which was the culture wars are supposed to be fought on the boundaries as a distraction, and you should never actually use a culture war. You know, you should never follow through on the culture war and actually go and hurt the bottom line of capital. You're missing the point. And he did that while simultaneously being the least likable person, the most no riz having, absolutely destroying his chances. The media propped him up. The institutional Republicans decided this is our guy, not realizing that Donald Trump's charisma is the major reason, and his capacity to read the room was his major reason for his success. Donald Trump is the Barack Obama white racist. A big part of Donald Trump's appeal is his riz, and Ron DeSantis had none of that. But Mr. DeSantis' devastating 30 percentage point loss to Mr. Trump in the Iowa caucuses last Monday had left him facing a daunting question. Why keep going? On Sunday, he provided his answer, acknowledging there was no point in soldiering on. Let's take a look at his 4-minute video. His campaign, remember, started off as a massive failure, and his campaign is departing on Twitter, also in a massive failure. Let's take a look.
Greetings from Florida. The warmth of being home is a reminder why I've chosen public service. From joining the United States Navy and serving in Iraq, to representing the people in the U.S. Congress, and now serving as governor of Florida. And it reminds me why I decided to run for president, to fight for those who have been forgotten in this country. This is America's time for choosing. We can choose to allow a border invasion, or we can choose to stop it. We can choose reckless borrowing and spending, or we can choose to limit government and lower inflation. We can choose political indoctrination, or we can choose classical education.
I mean, he wants political indoctrination, obviously.
These are symptoms of the underlying struggle to ensure that constitutional government can endure and that Western civilization can survive. And we launched this campaign to bring accountability to government, regain sovereignty at our border, and restore sanity to our society. We cannot succeed as a country if we allow our nation to be invaded, our currency to be debased, our cities to crumble, and our kids to be indoctrinated. The DC elites who facilitated this mess do not care about you, and they do not work for you. They work for themselves.
We'll just stop being governor of Florida for like a year to do this fail campaign. Yeah. Which is what Florida deserves, honestly. Because like, when has Florida had a good governor? I mean, the guys that came before Ron DeSantis, like the Lizard Man, Voldemort. Think about it this way. Lizard Man, Rick Scott, became governor of Florida, was made famous for doing the largest Medicare fraud in the history of the United States of America. Like, Florida looked at that guy and went, that's my guy. Think about that. It's just a very silly little place. People are so stupid. You cannot make sense of Florida. You just can't.
Citizens do not serve politicians. It is the duty of politicians to serve you. I have a record of leading with conviction, championing an agenda marked by bold colors, delivering on my promises, and defeating the people who are responsible for our nation's decline. That is the type of leadership we need for all of America.
Remember when he went to Japan for absolutely no discernible reason other than to, like, I guess, act like he has foreign policy chops? That should have been our first indication that he's just like, you know, he wasn't cut out for this. You know what I mean? That literally should have been our first answer, that he was just not making it. And then did this.
I'm not a candidate, so we'll see if and when that changes.
Come on, dog. Yeah, it's just, I'm not a candidate. Just so bad. Just so freaking bad. bad, dude.
And we left it all out on the field. Now, following our second place finish in Iowa, we've prayed and deliberated on the way forward. If there was anything I could do to produce a favorable outcome, more campaign stops, more interviews, but I can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign. I'm proud to have delivered on 100% of my promises, and I will not stop now. It's clear to me that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Donald Trump another chance. They watch his presidency get stymied by relentless resistance, and they see Democrats using lawfare this day to attack him. Well, I've had disagreements with Donald Trump, such as on the coronavirus pandemic and his elevation of Anthony Fauci. Trump is superior to the current incumbent, Joe Biden. That is clear.
So lame. So incredibly lame, dude. He also personally had absolutely zero smoke for Donald Trump early on, and only towards the end did he open up on him. And even then, he did a horrible job at opening up on him. He just sucked.
Signed a pledge to support the Republican nominee, and I will honor that pledge. He has my endorsement because we can't go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear, a repackaged form of warmed-over corporatism that Nikki Haley represents.
Okay, here's what's really interesting about this. He's endorsing Donald Trump, right? Which is not interesting because he's a massive and he thinks that if he were to have a career in the Republican Party, he needs to kiss the ring. Not realizing that Donald Trump, if he doesn't like you personally, will you regardless, like he did with Mitt Romney and also Christopher Christie, right? All of that stuff will not change his future in the Republican Party. Here's the major point. The Republican mega donors recognized Trump's volatility as an issue. The Republican Party set up a separate conference while CPAC was going on so that they could beef up Ron DeSantis. This was a big threat for Trump. That meant that all of the real institutional Republican Party defenders that control all the instruments of power within the Republican Party, from the think tanks to all of these like different groups that, you know, mobilize voters and whatnot, like all of that was supposed to go to Ron DeSantis. That's a big problem for Donald Trump. They propped him up as the guy who will defend the Republican Party, who will keep it together, because a lot of people saw Donald Trump as too volatile and also understandably saw the midterms as a major stain on Trump's reputation. They saw Trump-style candidates lose all around the country, and there's truth to that because Trumpian politics, unfortunately, does not make for a good national campaign. Now, Trumpian politics changes over time. At the time, in the midterms, Donald Trump is still not shutting the up about January 6th or how the election was stolen from him and yada yada. It had gotten very boring. It had gotten very stale for the American public. You don't really hear about him speak on those things as much anymore. You also had the anti-trans narrative being like the major culture war issue for the Republican Party, which also failed, right? Nobody gave it. Ron DeSantis was supposed to be the guy that galvanizes the base, except he was profoundly uncharismatic. And what happened after? He had bad political instincts, followed the Christopher Rufo methodology that actually caused the Republicans to have terrible gains in the midterms, like underperform in comparison to the projected expected outcomes of the midterms. Terrible instincts, no charisma whatsoever. The Republican Party's elite that want to keep the party intact recognized that maybe Ron DeSantis isn't the guy. In a last-ditch effort, they tried to mobilize behind Nikki Haley. You saw the Koch brother pull support from Little Rhonda in Nikki Haley's direction. Now, I personally believe that will be a failure as well, of course. But this failure for Ron is entirely in his hands. He had everything lined up for himself. And he had horrible political instincts and even worse charisma. And that is why every single time he appeared on camera, his popularity got worse. Ron did worse than Bloomberg money-wise. Ron DeSantis spent $150 million and only got 23,420 votes. That's $6,400 per vote, a record failure by a factor of 10x. Michael Bloomberg only spent like $450 per vote, the biggest dumpster fire in the history of presidential politics. To be fair, you're comparing it to a caucus that was sparsely attended. I think the caucus numbers were really, really low too, which I haven't really been able to make up my mind on what that means. I don't know if it was just because it was cold. But it does show me that spending $150 million in Iowa and then getting second place with like a couple percentage points over Nikki Haley, who did not spend that kind of money, is really, 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 really bad. It shows me that the Republican Party, which used to focus on winning, has also gotten kind of callous and maybe a little bad at politics because the Democratic Party gives them everything they want anyway. I feel as though the Democratic Party is like slowly moving in the direction of like the normal Republican constituency more and more, like winning out the educated white voters in suburbs that historically just want tax cuts and want to vote for the Republican Party, but don't want all of the stink associated with the crazies. There's a smell to the Republican Party base. You know how I make fun of anarchists for being crusty and not taking a shower? The Republican base support the white evangelicals. They mobilize aggressively, but they are stinky. They have a grossness associated with their passion, both for the issues that they defend, the issues that they're passionate about, but also in the way that they defend it. You ever see a group of anti-abortion protesters? They're gross. They're insane. You ever see a group of anti-trans people? They're gross. They're insane. They're talking about children's genitals all the goddamn time. No one in the suburbs that has like anything above a high school education wants to be around people like that. And Ron DeSantis leaned into that a lot more than Trump did, which is interesting. So the real question is, will Trump be able to win those guys back, at least enough of those guys back into the Republican Party? Let's keep going.
Last of kowtowing to large corporations, of caving to woke ideology are over.
Bro, he's still doing it. He's still like talking about woke ideology, no more kowtowing. He's like, no, man, you're too online. You're too internet.
Leave the bees for now. Get it later.
All right, I'll leave it. 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 I'm a fucking hive runner, baby.
Why is he going after the bees?
God, he keeps doing that.
It's very dark in here. I don't like that. What? I heard something. Flower, where are you?
Yeah. Hey, watch out for the back of the ship. There may or may not be a wild pack of bees I put there.
I need you to guide me back to the entrance, Hasan.
Wait, what did you say?
I said the hive runner's done it again.
What?